Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Verified AMA. This is your favorite daily show where you ask questions and I give you answers. My name is Lawton Ho, and I'm your host here at verifiedinvesting.com. Pro trader here. I hope you guys are doing well. It's been an interesting day. The S&P has kind of gone down, but Trump did announce that he was going to put 100% tariff on semiconductors built outside of the United States. So these semiconductors that are being built in the United States are getting a little bit of a bounce. As always, guys, we'd love to ask you to like and subscribe. It really helps us out, helps me out, helps the algorithm out, and helps everybody know that you enjoy this content that we are putting out. Okay, that you're enjoying this. But yeah, I'm so happy that you're all here. With that being said, the way this works is you can scan this QR code down below or visit the verifiedinvesting.com homepage and submit your question. There, I will answer them for you. Okay. So by scanning here, you can go kind of in the top right of your screen once you visit the verifiedinvesting.com homepage and click the watch and ask. Should say watch and ask. But anyways, what's up? All right. Jeanette says, great energy, Lawton. Thanks so much. I tune in on Wednesday afternoons when I can. I like you guys, but do you ever lose your mind listening to that Dr. B guy? He won't stop talking about his theories, and he often responds to questions by trying to sell us on his next program. Yeah, Dr. B, he's definitely quite a character. I like Dr. B a lot. I've learned a lot from him, so I have a lot of my trading success due to him. But I will admit there have been times where I've been on the live day trading room and he starts going off on a tangent about a wedger sling, and I can feel myself slowly lulled to sleep. Like I could fall asleep to recordings of him talking about something. But I love him. He's a really intelligent guy, and he real doctor, by the way, actual doctor. But he, yeah, I love Dr. B. But no, I hear you. Let's see here. Yeah, I hear your sentiment. All right. Mike says, hi, Lon. What's up, Mike? What level would you expect Caterpillar and RCL to get down to on a swing level if we see a sell-off in the markets? Well, look at this Netflix. I was talking about this forever. Talking about this Netflix trying to break down from this trend line, closed above and then pulled back right below and created a beautiful potential head and shoulders pattern. The measured move is down to here, and look at this drop on Netflix. We did see this drop about 8%. Nice to see. But you asked me about RCL, Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines, as well as Caterpillar, the construction company. So on RCL, I had this previously drawn, some sideways consolidation, a break of this, and then a move lower, which is what it's doing. And it's and then here, sorry, just reading the questions. And here you can see it's potentially bear flagging. I got to remind myself I am easily distracted. So if you see continued sideways consolidation, you're expecting more movement down. My target would be around, you have support here about 11% lower, around $274. That's this is a level that I anticipate a pullback to around 274. All right. That's a level that I could see it pulling back to. Let's see here. You also have more support down here around 265. So around 14% lower. Let's see here. Louis says, actually, the other one you said, sorry, my brain is not working, Caterpillar. I was just trying to look at a billion things at the same time. For Caterpillar, you have this nice upsloping trend line. It kind of tried to close below, but where did it bounce off of? Basically, this gap fill, the same level that I was targeting on a pullback for Caterpillar, about 7% from its highs. You expect to bounce off this level, but what you want to see is a clear break of this upsloping trend line and a close below. Man, my brain is just exploding right now. All right, let's bring the energy up. Let's bring it back, guys. I need your help. Send me your energy. So, upsloping trend line on Caterpillar favors a breakdown. For me, you could look at this gap fill about 5% lower than that. There's another one here about 12% lower. Those are the two levels after this that I'm anticipating a bounce in Caterpillar on a swing basis. If you are already in a swing position in Caterpillar, right? You see this crazy move up. This Caterpillar stock moves 65% up without any pullbacks, pretty much. Without any pullbacks, we can use our fib retracement tool to see where we might see a pullback to. You can wait for the 382. That would be, we're about 10% lower than the current trading price. You have the 618 all the way down here, about 27% lower, and then the 886. But unlikely that it would hit that level. Okay, unlikely. But for me, you have 366 as my ultimate downside target. Geez, Dean says, is FTNT going to bounce, or should I cut a loss and go home and cry? I have positions at $73.50 and $73. So your average is 73.25. I'll tell you on a day trading. 73.25 is around your average, I guess, if you have two positions. For me, could I see FTNT getting up there today? I could see that, right? I could see it getting up to that break even. You are breaking down from this, breaking up from this down sloping trend line, right? You had a break, a retrace, right? And what do I always say? You enter on the break, the retrace, and that doesn't matter what time frame you're on. In this case, we're talking about the 1 minute time frame. So it pierced the VWAP. That's huge. VWAP is usually a good level of support or resistance. In this case, it would be resistance. It closed above. What you now want to see is a move and some sideways consolidation. If you can see this sideways consolidation, I can see it going up to at least the $72.90 region, right? Thankfully, you're not too far out of the money, only about less than 2%. Right, so can it move? Absolutely. Is it likely to move? I mean, you're up currently 5% from the lows, but the stock is down 25% on the day. Let's check the volume. Here's the problem that I have with FTNT is that the volume has kind of petered out towards the end of the day. So it's less likely to move off of volume. For me, my best case scenario is that you have a light volume float, which is where there's less volume and it kind of floats up for the rest of the day. Or towards the end of the day, you see kind of short coverings, right? Like people who shorted this already take their profits and push it higher, right? But I would play with the stop loss. Like I would not be interested in staying in this if it fell probably below here. But keep that in mind, Dean, okay? Louis says, hi, Lawton. I hope you're doing well. Would you short RCL? Can you provide some resistance to the downside? Yep, I actually did cover that earlier. Would I short it? Let me take this stuff off. Yeah, RCL again, it's kind of already started to move down. It's down like 13% already. Do I think it could have more downside? Yes, but you want to see a bear flag and then maybe short into the bear flag. And if you do decide to short it, I would look for a target 7 to 11% of the money, and I would stop out. I keep my stop tight, probably 4% stop out. Okay, let's see what else we have going on. Okay, someone's asking, hi Lon, what are your swing trade long levels for FTNT for Tenet? So it's earnings, right? So I'm not really interested until you have gap window here. It's my first level. And then I have gap fill. I would love the $55 level, but you're talking about 22% lower. You have this level here, gap window 65, 61. That could provide a good level. You also have this pivot low down here around $65. So around $65, I'd be interested in potentially a swing long on FTNT. What says, howdy Lon, what's up? Question about your video yesterday on the APP earnings play. Let's do it. Let's hop into it. And look at APP now. Absolutely insane. By the way, I entered right here. 30, 30, 334, 35. Somewhere around here. And I took profits. I took like 1.5%, 2% profits, but I could have taken 35% profits. But anyways, yesterday about your APP earnings play, can you show me on the chart the gap fill around 335 that you were playing? I think I see it, but I just want to make sure what I'm seeing, what I'm talking about. Absolutely. So yeah, APP had earnings yesterday, and I actually traded it in our earnings trader. I was going long based on a gap fill, and that gap fill is right here, like 335 right here. This gap fill here. That's where I played it. And that is also pretty much the low of APP 35% ago. Absolutely ridiculous. But I nailed that. Felt really good. Not going to lie. I nailed that bottom and I was like, all right, I only made 2% about that with that, but I could have made $1 billion. I'm not gonna complain. But anyways. Someone's asking, can you talk about your support and resistance levels for Google? Absolutely. Google. As you can see, my chart is a monstrosity, an absolute monstrosity. But that's okay. Had that nice upsloping trend line. That's where I anticipate a pullback on Google, right? And at the time I drew it, that was going to be somewhere around here. That is no longer the case. Likelihood of it reaching that trend line, it's unlikely to reach that trend line prior to reaching these levels. So these are my resistance levels for Google. You saw how I found that. This is the gap fill, right? And then it dropped 7% off of earnings. And this is the previous all-time high double top. Those are the two levels I would short Google, and then of course on this trend line should it hit there. But those are my resistance levels for Google. For support, I'm not really interested in going long. This thing is kind of a beast. Vertical move up since June, basically. You're talking about a move up 22%. Not interested. Sorry. I can tell you where it's likely to find support, but I'm not going to be interested in a swing long, potentially a day trade. But should Google come down, fall 5 or 6%, I expect resistance support there, as well as over here around 12% lower. Okay. Dean says, I was watching your Apex trading yesterday and you had bought and sold stocks. Yep. I noticed that you repeatedly buy into it a few times. However, the selling was a little quick You repeated the buy info a few times. However, the selling was a little quick and you got out quick in the stock drop. After just wondering if on a regular basis that sell order comes with more notice when you don't hit your target. Yeah. I would say that 90% of the time I make my sell order very clear ahead of time. Like today, I explained when I got into the trade, I gave you my sell and my buy entry. But because I saw price action was like looking kind of bad for us, I just decided to cut that position, right? But that's not a case of it hit my target, I'm taking profits here. It's just trade's not working out like I wanted to, and I just took it off the table. Like I made a 1%. I had a 1% gain today on socks. In the live day trading room, and I gave those levels way ahead of time. But that's something that happens very rarely. Only if I look at it, I'm like, ooh, I don't like the way this trade is looking. I'm just going to cut it here. Okay? So that does not happen almost ever. Everett says, hi, Lon. Do you have any love in CFLT? Small company had earnings. Bear flagging. This looks bearish. Down move. Sideways consolidation favors a move lower. Let's see where the support is. Yikes. Okay, for me, you do have this nice gap fill all the way back here from November of 2023 at the start of the bull run. And the pivot low from there as well. Those are two levels you're likely to see a bounce about 2.5 and 12% lower respectively. Those are the only two levels I have left on my chart, but these are the two levels that I would be interested in potentially buying CFLT, although it does look like it wants to go lower. But what do we know? And let me turn this into a teachable moment. I said this yesterday, I'll say it tomorrow, and I'll say it the day after that too. Bear flags and bear patterns are still valid at the tops and bottoms, but bear patterns at the low of the charts are less likely to play out than they are at the top of the charts. All right. Thank you for your kind words, all-in trader. Would love to see your analysis on anything. And we'd love to see you have your own show and see how comfortable you are. I'm sure you're a very attractive individual, intelligent individual as well. Ed saying, hi, Lawton. Thank you for being online and taking questions. Of course, Ed, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you being here. What entry and exit would look attractive for a long swing trade on M-Phase, ENPH? Not financial advice. Thank you, Lawton. Of course. And all I'm doing here, I don't know everything. And I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. But I do my best to try and give you information that might provide some value to you. So you want to take a look at ENPH and what entry and exit would look good for a long, potentially a retrace down to this nice gap fill, right? Just the closing price from yesterday, about $30. And for me, I would be happy to add I have support here around $1.50 lower, 4% lower, and then again here around 8.5% lower, right? Those are levels that you are likely to catch a bounce on ENPH should it continue lower. Now, if it moves up, right, where would I take profits? You have a nice gap fill here around 10% higher. And this is something that's really important, especially particularly when you're swing trading, right? You need to maintain a proper, a good risk to reward ratio. I know that my max downside for here, if I enter here, like I could add all the way down 8% lower, then my target has to be above that, right, or greater. Right. I don't want to think, oh, this thing could go against me 20%, but I want to try and make a 2% gain. That doesn't really make sense, right? So for me, I target here this gap fill, or you have a nice pivot here. My ultimate target for this, for upside target, would be here at this gap for around $42.46, approximately 33% higher from the current price. Now, ENPH is currently trading down about 90% from its from its all-time highs. So that's something interesting to note. Marcus says, would you go long Nike on the monthly now or nah? Good question. Let's take a look. So on Nike, you have a clear downtrend, right? You have a clear kind of down-sloping trend line here that Nike is beginning to potentially break. Now, this is something to note, right? And this is actually a really good question. So I'll turn this into a teachable moment. So I'm looking at the monthly time frame, right? And if I say on this time frame, it looks bullish. It looks like it's Nike favors a move higher, that I would consider going long Nike. Well, you have to keep in mind that because you're on the monthly time frame, the time it may take for this move to play out is in a couple of months, right? So I wouldn't use this to chart for a day trade, right? Or even a short-term swing trade. This is something that I'd look for over the course of 10 months, however long. Like, just know that the bottom, the start of this trend line is all the way from 2023. We tried to break out of it in December of 2023, but continued lower, right? Even if we go look at the weekly, we can see something kind of similar, right? This nice down-sloping trend line that we did attempt to break out of quite a few times. We had this move and a retrace down into it, right? Then bear flag fell. So for me, this does look bullish. I would say I would be bullish on Nike. If we go into the daily, even lower, we have the same trend line, gapped up, tried to move higher, right? But I like the weekly for this. So already off of the break, Nike moved about 12% higher, kind of like what you're looking for a swing trade, maybe a little bit on the lighter side, but you're not going to be sad about a 12% gain, right? But look at this. This retrace, if it comes down and retraces about 7% back to this down-sloping trend line, then potentially you'd be able to see a bounce, right? That could be a great level, about 7% lower. If it comes back down, I would be interested in being a buyer somewhere around here. If it were to come down, looking for a potential upside target around, really Nike looks pretty good. I'd look for at least 21% on this. So Nike looks good for trade, to be honest. But I'd wait for a retrace, personally. Dave says, hey, Lawton, what's up, Dave? Thanks for doing this. You're welcome. Thanks for asking questions. Do you ever get FOMO watching so many companies constantly grinding up, hitting new all-time highs? Part of me just wants to jump in and set a stop, which is what I used to do, and it worked well. But for some reason, after learning TA, it feels scarier. Any advice? Or am I just being a wuss, or am I being smart? Here's the thing, okay? Here's the thing, and it's really important, and I'll go full screen for this. No one can tell you how to trade, right? No one can tell you how to trade. Even if you believe that the markets, even if I believe the markets are going to pull back, right? And just because I wouldn't do something doesn't mean you have to follow that, right? If you want to trade, if you think that the stock could continue higher and you want to protect yourself if it continues to go higher, then you can go long and put in a stop. Right? Just because you know TA, just because the probabilities favor a pullback doesn't mean they have to, right? And I'll be real with you, right? If you bought anything in April, and just sat on it, you would have made a bajillion dollars, right? You would have made a bajillion dollars. And you look at that and you feel like, man, I wish I bought that and I wish I held that. I wish I did that. Why didn't I do that? Right? And the reality is that, if you want to, just because you can, right? Just because we're shorting something doesn't mean that you can't go long, right? Especially if TA tells you whatever, right? And TA, I would say, even helps you, right? If you want to go with this strategy, similar like what you used to do, Dave, to technical analysis actually helps you do that even more efficiently. Because let's take a look at I don't know, let's say Netflix, right? Netflix had a head and shoulders pattern, but continued to move up, right? And let's say you wanted to hop in on this, or let's say RCL, for example. Okay. Or something at all-time highs. Let me see. GEV. So GEV is at all-time highs, continues to move higher. Let's say you just want to get into this and capitalize on the gains. How do you do that using technical analysis? Is you just start a, let's say you just press market order. You just buy. You just want to go long, right? Just because you want to think, okay, if it's going higher, if retail continues to buy, then I'm just going to buy. It makes no sense using technical analysis. I'm just going to press buy. That's fine. Buy it, hold it. But you can play with the stop, right? You can play with the stop out level. You could say, well, there's a gap fill and pivot low here that the gap fill kissed on around 632.50. And I can just put my stop out there. And as GEV continues to move higher, I continue to move my stop out level at levels of resistance that if they break, all right, I'm out. Right? You can use your technical analysis to find levels where you're likely to see resistance, and if it breaks those resistance levels, then you can stop out. So there's not only one way to trade, right? It's not the markets are up, you have to short it. No, that's not the only way to trade, right? Like I'll give you an example. There's this stock Circle, right? CRCL Circle. IPO'd, went crazy. I shorted it right here at $280. And I just did it because I was like, I just did it for fun, right? Because there's something wrong in my head. But I shorted a bunch of shares and then it started to fall. Okay, I sold a bunch of my shares. I have 50 shares left of Circle at $280 and I'm still holding it. My order to cover is right here at like 133.64. I'm just letting the momentum play. I'm not using my brain. I'm not saying, okay, well, it favors a bounce here, 40% of the money. I'm over $100 per share of the money. That's $5,000. I'm going to take that. No, I'm just like, okay, well, I think it's going to go lower eventually, so I'll just leave it there, and I'll use technical analysis to find my target. I like this target here around 132.62, so that's kind of a blend, right? We're all individual traders, and just because I trade a certain way, Gareth trades a certain way, Jim Cramer trades a different way, you trade a different way, that doesn't mean you can't, come up with your own strategy. In fact, I think it's more important, right? It's more important that you learn and come up with your own strategy that you're comfortable with. Because yet, at the end of the day, when you're trading, it's your hard-earned money, right? When it goes up or down, right? Even if I say I like this level, I'm not the one that experiences it in the same way as you do when you see your portfolio go up or down, because my position size may be different. Right? How much money I put in, percentage of my money, how much value I put for that money is different, right? So it's so important to kind of find your own style, find out what you're comfortable with. If you want to use stop losses, use stop losses. If you want to go with the trend, go with the trend, right? But use technical analysis to find levels that you're likely to see a target, right? A target for. So that was a very long-winded answer for you, Dave. I hope you were listening, and I hope that made sense. I hope that helped. If not, I'd be happy to answer it. Did I cover CRM? I did not, but I can. CRM coming down. Salesforce does have earnings in about 2 weeks. Levels of support. Boom. Pivot low, Liberation Day lows. These are 3 levels that I anticipate a bounce in CRM. So you're talking about 2%, 3%, and 4% lower. However, if CRM has poor earnings, you can see further downside. Let's see how much CRM usually moves on earnings. Down 4% there. Over here, it dropped 3%. And here on good news, it popped up 10%. So CRM, not the biggest movers. So if it was somewhere in this range, I could see these levels being decent trading levels of support for CRM. But just know, I don't like going long or short into earnings because I'm gambling. I'm flipping a coin, hoping it comes into my favor, right? Because I don't know the earnings ahead of times. And just because I'm drawing a bunch of imaginary trend lines and fib retraces and bearish patterns, bull flags, head and shoulders patterns, doesn't matter. Earnings are earnings. The stock is going to do what it's going to do on earnings. David says, "Hey, Lawton, great job as always. Can you give us your levels on stocks, please?" Yeah, I think I just added to my position on stocks. I added 669, right? And my next ad was 25 cents lower. It didn't quite hit my ad. It did hit my ad. I added at 744. I'm not at my brokerage, so I don't remember where it is. So my average is somewhere around 788, I think, 788. I took half off in the money at like 840. Keaton says, "Hey, Lon, what's your swing take on an INTC?" Let's take a look. Intel Corporation coming down. Not the best earnings, and it's surprising, right? Just because a bunch of semiconductors are up. However, we know that President Trump did say that he's putting 100% tariff on all semiconductors and chips manufacturers outside of the United States. Okay, so where is it going to bounce? I had this nice down-sloping trend line that you broke out of, kind of retraced, closed below. So now it's retracing now. That's where you're seeing this bounce, right? Could have taken maybe a 1% bounce on that for a day trade for me. I mean, you have a couple gap fill levels, but this gap fill level and this pivot low are two levels that should provide some support. Then you have more support down here from the Liberation Day lows. And, as many people, as much as Liberation Day hurt for a lot of Americans investing in the overall stock market, it was pretty great for traders like us, not only because we could cover some shorts and get into some longs, however, also great because it's created a lot of great levels of support. Like, we know that catastrophic event happened, like the most bearish news possible, widespread tariffs with no discretion, right? Which are obviously reversed now for the most part. That's the lowest that you expect it to go. Could definitely see a bounce, right? But definitely the lowest from there. Dean says, "I appreciate you sharing your knowledge." Of course, you're welcome. Thanks for listening, Dean. Donovan says, "Hey, Lon, what's up, Donovan? Thanks for doing this on the regular." Of course, my pleasure. It's a lot of fun. What do you think about buying FTNT at the parallel? Let's see. Parallel around that starts in November 2023. Can you send me your chart? You mind sending me your chart? I'm assuming you're talking about something like this, right? Like something like this. Around $69. Here's what I would say. If you want to send your chart to me, I'd be happy to take a look at it. Donovan, you just go to your trading view, click up here on take a snapshot, and click down here at copy link. And then you can copy a link, send it in the chat. I'd be happy to look at it. Luis says he wants to see support and resistance on Shopify. Shopify did have earnings, up on earnings. For me, resistance levels are 163. I'll zoom in so you can see my resistance levels. 163, 170, and 176. If you want to see where I got those resistance levels, you got to look at the previous all-time highs that were previously hit on Shopify in 2021. So you have here pivot high, and double top all-time high. Those are my levels of resistance. 8%, 13%, and 17% higher respectively. Shopify is coming down, but here's what I would say, that if you see after this great move up, if you see some sideways consolidation, that usually means the stock wants to go higher. So can it go higher? Absolutely. Fred says, hey, thanks for NBO, Novo Nordisk. I got 150 shares last night. Did not get out like you did, but made, I think, $550. Awesome. So glad. Yeah, we had a winner in my smart money stocks and ETFs in my dividend trader. Took a nice profit, about 12% profit in just under 24 hours. Just a couple hours, actually, like 12 or 13 hours. So congratulations to you guys for taking that. Fred, awesome job on the $550. Congrats. Paid for that entire service. And that's the whole thing, right? You see a lot of companies try and sell you services, try and sell you this, and try and sell you that. Like, I wholeheartedly believe in our products because I believe that our products will pay for themselves, literally pay for themselves, right? Like, it's leaving like money on the table by not enlisting in it. But yeah, awesome, Fred. This one's asking whether when you're shorting, do you do this with margin or buying puts? I use margin. It says, thank you so much for your ENPH and chart teaching. Much appreciated. Of course, thank you so much for being here and asking questions. If you have any more questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Michelle says, would be shorting lows for Ethereum and XRP and their targets. So I did short XRP last week. Took a nice gain on that. You see my entry here. Took about a 12% gain in like 3 or 4 days. For me on XRP, shortable level for me, probably a retrace to this trend line, probably around this level 323. And my target would probably, I'd look for the same, probably exit around 274, right? And if you don't get that, you can always replay this because it's on YouTube. As far as Ethereum is concerned, my shortable level isn't until 411. I actually like Ethereum, right? I actually like Ethereum more than the others. It's still down significantly. It was the little brother at Bitcoin. Like, why isn't it moving higher? So it broke up for this downsloping trend line. I think it likely goes a little higher. So 411.13, this nice pivot high is where I'd short it. And I'd probably look for a target at least 6% lower. Michelle says, hi, what's up, Michelle? Hope you're doing well. I'm wondering why we're long B. No problem. Let me check what service that's in. I'd be happy to go over anything you'd like. So BIIB. Okay. So why is the target on BIIB around 175? Let's see the levels. This is not my trade. However, so what I'll say is the 175 level is kind of like a psychological level. You also have a nice pivot high here around 175.62. So that's the reason for that target. Like, there's a pivot right here just around that level, 176, 175 area. So that's why your target will be there. But there's resistance there. Yep. And there's also a previous gap fill here at 172. So somewhere around that range. But just because we give a specific target doesn't mean we're going to wait for that target to exit. Sometimes it'll get there and we might cut it a little earlier ahead of that target. So Teresa says, hi, Lawton. Just logging on. Did you cover LDOS yet? I did not, but I'd be happy to do so. Man, okay, I got to go a little bit faster as we have 5 minutes left. I'm going to go quickly. We're going to call this section the rapid fire round. All right, let's do it. All right, LDOS. What do I think about LDOS? Had a nice pop off of earnings. Where is it likely to find resistance? You had a previous gap fill here. Of course, you have a pivot high here or like a red bar high there. but I mean, not too much more on LDOS. When things usually pop up on earnings and come down on earnings, I usually like to wait for a pattern. If you absolutely think I need to get into this, I want to capitalize on this, I want this I want to see this go higher, I want to ride the wave of momentum, right? Like a lot of us FOMO into it. Then you could enter literally right here, and then I would put my stop. Like if your targets are around 8% higher, I'd be comfortable with the stop out level on a close below yesterday's pivot low, right? So yesterday, the lowest point the price got was around 170.40. If price gets below there, you can consider stopping out. So you're risking basically 2.8% with the 8% or 10%, 11% a reward. So that's your risk to reward ratio right there, if you absolutely want to get into it. But this gap fill level is great around 160, but that would have to mean a huge reversal into the stock. But this is where I'd get in. But you can always get in ahead of time as long as you put a stop to prevent your downside. Nathan says, what do you see in the charts for Tesla? Tesla has been continually trading in this wedge. And what do I have on this wedge? You see it, I see it, everyone sees it. It's just sitting in this tight wedge. I'm waiting for it to kind of break out or break down. It tried to break down from this, but I was unable to confirm. So we want to see a break either to the upside or the downside. If it breaks up, I'll enter on a close above, potentially. If it goes down, I'll short it on a close below. Someone's asking if I'm particular about what stocks I'm trading based on the environmental impact, animal involvement. Would it make sense to subscribe to the Trade Alerts Explorer or one of the other swing alert, knowing that I won't be able to take every trade? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can take a look at the trade history specifically for the smart money stocks and ETFs and take a look at all the different things that we've traded, right? If there are anything in particular that you have some sort of qualms about stocks, environmental impact, animal involvement like Estee Lauder or something with like U.S. oil or something, I definitely understand. But we trade all sorts of stocks from like tech companies like NVIDIA to smaller things, household names, to like Roblox, right, which is like a video game for. Dave says, thanks, Lawton. I appreciate your answer. Thanks for listening, Dave. It makes me so much happier that you're listening. I got to go a little faster. Sarah said, how are you, Lawton? What's up, Sarah? Nice to see you again today. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for asking questions. What are the outlook to go back to all-time highs? Come on, handle. Let me take a look at this chart you sent me, Sarah. Thank you for sending that. Yeah, I mean, with the cup, you kind of want to see it like even, but I would say it looks valid, but you want to see the handle finish, right? You want to see, right? Like it's fine, right? But you want to see the cup, right? The handle. And then after the handle breaks up, you want to see it push higher. So this is valid, but you want to see the handle form. We're just waiting for the handle to form. Jessica says, hey, Lawton, can you do some technical on CleanSpark? Absolutely. Support and resistance going to earnings. Oh, no. Yes, I will go into it. Do not trade into earnings. I do not trade into earnings. CleanSpark, it doesn't really move much off of earnings, to be honest. If you take a look, here's a decent size move, 12%. Okay, let's check this move here. You saw a move down about 8%. All right, so let's see. For me, I'm looking for levels around that range. I like this level, this gap fill here, about 16% lower for the upside for resistance. I'm targeting like this pivot high. These are my levels for support and resistance on CleanSpark. I would probably not be interested into this on any levels ahead of these. Marcus says ANF has a weekly topping tail. 2 weeks ago, it was taken out. Do you buy call options? No, I do not. Just because a thesis is negated doesn't mean I automatically think. If I have a head and shoulders pattern and it gets negated, that doesn't mean I automatically go long. I need to find a factor for that other than my thesis was negated, right? Donovan sent a chart, said here's the FTNT chart. Yes, I like that parallel, but the problem is you only have one hit to the top side. It's the same parallel I was looking at. Usually you want to see at least 2 pivots on either side for the parallel to really be great and be respected. Louis says, to go short, do you like selling calls? Not, or you can, but I like to use margin. But if you're an options trader, do it in the options. I trade options here and there. Tracy says, I noticed that GEV respects the RSI, fairly predictable bounce when it's oversold. Yep. But dips, your full position, would you ever consider? I think GEV favors a move to the downside, right? So significantly that, like, as long as you're in a good position to capitalize at the end of the day, just because when this thing falls, right? When it falls, it's going to fall. All right. I'm going to try and answer a couple more questions. Brewski says, good day, Lon. Thanks for the great all infos. As always, enjoy the rest of your green day. Thanks so much for being here, Brewski. Thank you all of you at home for watching it. So it's asking, it says, thank you for answering all my questions and greetings from Switzerland. Greetings from Florida. Love Switzerland. Really want to go skiing on the Swiss Alps. Ryan says, hey, Lon, my team is T-Mobile in a bullish consolidation. My average cost is $247. Would you DCA now as its current price? I love you. I love you too, Ryan. I love you too. $247. Let's see here. Price coming down. You're about 2.5% out of the money. Not really. If price went lower here, you can consider adding, to be honest. There. These are my 2 levels, but you're only 2% out of the money. However, right, this down move, sideways consolidation could be bearish, could be putting in a move lower. However, you did have a beautiful inverse head and shoulders pattern there, right? Inverse head and shoulders. So it's just retracing to it, right? Just retracing to it. So this is not bullish. This would be bearish consolidation, actually, because it's a down move into this sideways consolidation. However, you also have the retrace to the neckline of this beautiful inverse head and shoulders, which has a measured move all the way up to. Where does it have a measured move up to? All the way up here, 11% higher. But you're not likely to see the full move play out. Okay, it's 11:17. These shows keep getting longer and longer. I got to go. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining me here. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and giving us clicking subscribe on the Verified Investing YouTube channel. It really helps us, and the algorithm helps other people see me, and it helps my bosses know that you like this type of content and you want to see more of this content. Again, guys, my name is Lawton Ho here with Verified Investing, and I go live every single day. The markets are open from 12:30 to 1:15, and it's now 1:18. If you have any additional questions, you can just send them to me on Twitter at Lawton Investing. It's just my first name, Lawton, followed by the word investing. You can just follow me there, send me a DM. I'd be happy to answer any questions. If you want me to chart anything, if you want to send me your charts for me to take a look at, I'd be happy to answer that. I can't promise that I'm going to answer it right away, but I'll do my best. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.